Well, I'm so excited to be with y'all. I brought my boyfriend of 40 years with me tonight. And my husband of 30 years. He actually approves of this message and approves of this 40-year-old boyfriend. Because of my boyfriend of 40 years, he has allowed me to play on stages such as Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, Red Rocks, and I've been able to open up for amazing artists such as Charlie Daniels to the Marshall Tucker Band. Is it okay if I introduce you to him? Yeah. Okay, all right. Here he is. This is Mickey, my boyfriend. Now, Mickey, he never talks back. He never asks what's for dinner, and he rarely gets me in trouble, except for that one time in college. I went to UNC and was studying music, and I had a crush on the big man on campus. And finally, my junior year, he asked me out, and I was so excited. We went on a date. It went great, I thought, but he never called me back for a second one. Come to find out, he told my college roommate, he said, hey, that date went great, but I'm not gonna date a girl that already has a hickey on her neck. Well, my roommate forgot to mention that is a badge of honor in the music school. Because in the music school, you would know what kind of instrument you played by the markings on your body. So trumpets, they would have like this permanent red circle. And for us violinists, we would have a permanent red mark, which we affectionately called our fiddle hickey. And like any good musician, songwriter, that was traumatic. And I had to write about it in a song. And the song goes like this. Mickey was the closest thing that ever touched my skin. All the good boys wouldn't ask me out, and the bad boys, they just grinned. My mom, she saw my neck and said, I need to be more picky. But I said, Mama, Mickey gave me that fiddle hickey. So we've had a lot of stories over the years, but before Mickey came into my life, there was Minnie. Minnie is my quarter-size violin that I started playing when I was 6 years old, and it was all because of Donahue. Does anybody know about Donahue? Yes? If not, Donahue was the precursor to Oprah. So my mama, she was watching Donahue one day, and they had Suzuki students on the Donahue show. Now, Suzuki is a method that a lot of people learn how to play music, and that's how I started. And it's a philosophy that you learn music like your mother tongue. So first you listen, then you speak it, then you read it. So with violin, first you listen, then you play it, then you read it. And that is how you get 5- and 6-year-old violinists on the Donahue show. So my mama, she looked at me while we were watching. She's like, hey, do you want to play violin? And I was like, yes. And I think she might have thought that maybe I was a prodigy. I am not. But I thought, well, if I play violin, I could get on TV and I could meet Donahue. Well, I never met Donahue, but I've had amazing experiences all because of this little old piece of wood. Now, inside a violin, there is something super special, and it's never really seen except by the violinist. And it's in this little F-hole right here, and that is the label of the violin. And there's 2 parts to the label. There is the date that it was made. Mine was made in 1928, so almost 100 years old. And violins are very similar to fine wine. The older, the better. In fact, violin makers of today, what they will do is they will actually place the violin in front of a huge speaker, and they'll blast symphonies into it to try to loosen up the wood to make it sound aged and seasoned. But nothing compares to actually it being played all these years. So the second part of the label is actually the most important, and that is the maker of the violin. My violin was made by a gentleman by the name of Roth from Germany, and he had a lovely violin shop in the 30s. But in the 40s, World War II broke out, and he and his whole family were sent to the concentration camps, never to return. So that makes this violin even more extra special. And I feel so honored that I get to play a little bit of his legacy every night. So I wrote a song in our band, and it's called Family Tree. And I wrote the chorus thinking, what if he was alive today? What might he tell us? And the lyrics go like this. Listen to the wooden lullaby as it sings. Here's to hoping one day this crazy old world will see. Life is like a vapor, too short to disagree. that we all come from that same family tree. And I wrote the introduction thinking if he was alive today, what he might play on his instrument. And it goes something like this. Well, you know, violins are under consistent tension. There's actually about 30 pounds of tension in these strings. But the tension is what makes the sound so sweet, and it creates intonation. If the strings are too loose, they'll be floppy. And if they're too tight, they're pop. But just the right amount of tension makes the sweet sound. And similarly, you'll notice on the back of the violin, mine's made out of tiger wood. And they found that wood of violins grows best at 7,000 in elevation or higher. And the reason why is because it has a longer winter and a shorter growing season, which in turns make the rungs of the tree closer, which in turns makes the wood more dense. And that is what creates that melodic, mellow violin sound. So I know we've all had moments in our lives of pressure and tension, but sometimes that tension can create a beautiful journey. So my moment of tension was after college. Well, and in college, I was just all into college. I was like the student president of the music school and graduated magna cum laude, all this stuff. Well, after graduation, reality hit the next day. And so did my car payment. So I had to get a job right away. And I got a temporary job in Denver at this huge warehouse. And my job was to stack license plates and catalog them. It was like the size of a football field, huge. So in day 4 of this horrible job, I was in the back, and all of a sudden, like 20 guys were a little burly and rowdy and rough looking and wearing orange jumpsuits. Well, they came in from the back, and they had a carpentry shop in the back of this warehouse. So they were just tootling on by me. Here I am stacking license plates. They were having a grand old time in that classroom, and that's when the moment hit. I was like, I have got to go where the music's at. So the next day, I packed up Mickey and my Honda Accord, and we drove to Branson, Missouri. Well, I knew there was live music there. So, but once I got there, I was like, ooh, I don't have a job, and I don't know anybody, and I don't have a place to live. So I rented an hourly hotel room. Now, let me tell you, there were some hickeys going on there, but it wasn't from the violin. So eventually, I got a job, and after work every day, I would send a little promo package to all the little theaters. And at the 72nd theater, I finally got a call, and this guy called up and he said, "Hey, Michelle, this is Wayne Newton's musical director. We got your promo package. Would you like a job? If you do, show up on Monday." I was like, hot dog, yes, sir. Well, I called my mom. I was so excited. I was like, Mom, I got a gig with some guy named Wayne Newton. And she was like, Michelle, he's kind of famous. He's like Mr. Las Vegas. And I was like, Mom, I don't even know his music. And she said, Michelle, remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the theme song Dankeschön? That's Wayne Newton. I was like, oh, gotcha. So I showed up next Monday, just big eyes that didn't know what I was doing, but we ended up having a great time, and he was awesome to work for. And we were doing 12 shows a week, and it was so much fun. But after so many months, it was like factory work, but you had to smile. There's only so many ways you can play Dankeschön creatively. So at that time, I met my sweet hubby, and he was so kind. He said, Michelle, we got to go where the music's at. I can get a job anywhere. So we packed up the Honda again, and we drove to Nashville, living on love. We didn't have jobs or a place to stay, but we figured it out together, and we had a lovely time, 12 years in Nashville, and I was able to play on Music Row and studios and a lot of different groups, and it was awesome. Well, at that time, we started having little babies. We had 4 babies, and we wanted to get back to Colorado to be closer to family. So we moved back to Colorado, and I kind of hung up Mickey for a little bit to raise my littles, and I started teaching. Well, about 5 years in, I got a call from another musical director. And this time he said, "Hey, Michelle, this is Charlie Daniels, musical director." And he said, "Charlie's coming to town and he'd like for you and your band to open for him." I was like, "Okay, sure." I did not tell him I did not have a band at the time. I'm kind of a girl that says yes, and then I figure it out afterwards. So anyway, I had 4 months to put this together. So the next time at church, I was like, found some musicians that I thought would be fun to hang out with. And I said, "Hey guys, so would you want to be in a band with me? I'm calling it Wire Wood Station. It's from the wire of our strings and the wood of our instrument." And got them all excited about it. And I said, "Oh, and by the way, our first gig will be opening for Charlie Daniels, if that's okay." So we opened for Charlie Daniels and we had a great time. Well, at the time, who's in the band now, the original players are not in the band because really they weren't playing on a second full-time job. So, but the guys that are in it now, we've had so much fun. We have about 185 gigs a year. And we've won Best of Springs for like 8 years running. And we've had an opportunity to win the Best Band in Colorado at the Rocky Mountain Music Festival. And just recently, we placed in the top 2 bands at the International Telluride Bluegrass Festival. So we've had such a great time, and we've opened up for Randy Travis and Mark Chestnut and Sawyer Brown, Phil Vassar, all these amazing people. But it might not have happened if it wasn't for Charlie Daniels. So at the end of every show, we always play a little tribute to him, and it goes like this. Well, I recently got my violin appraised, and the appraiser said, "Hey, Michelle, that would be worth a lot more if you didn't play it, because it has all these little dings and scratches on it." But violins are meant to be heard and played. And the older I get, I realize people are the same way. People just want to be heard. Everybody has a story, and if we just take time to listen, I know our world would be a better place. Yeah. So one of my sweetest memories of really listening was not on the gigantic stages and the amazing people I played with, but it is actually at a memory care unit in Nashville. So when we were in Nashville, of course, I'm just trying to break into the music scene, and everybody in Nashville is a musician, like everybody. So a friend and I, we started playing in memory care units, and we were playing some jazz standards one night, and this sweet little grandma, she got up from her wheelchair, and I was playing away, and she was like right here, and I'm playing, and she's swaying to the music, and I just kept playing. And then at the end of the song, she kind of bowed her head, and then she went back to her wheelchair. Well, I didn't think anything of it. I just went on about my business and put my violin away, and all of a sudden her daughter came up to me, tears streaming down her face, and she said, "Thank you so much for coming out and giving us the gift of music." She said, "That was my mama who came up to you, and she has not been responsive for 2 whole years. This is the first time she has shown any response." And she said, "Thank you so much for that gift." And this is the tune that it was. Music can tell a story, and it doesn't even need words. Well, the last little portion of my violin that's super important and super special, a violin is not a solo project. We need the bow. But nobody ever says, "Wow, you play that bow great," right? They're like, you play that violin pretty great. But the bow is super special because without the bow, the violin would never be heard. And it's interesting, the bow, this is horsehair, actual horsehair. And if you take the horsehair and you put it under a microscope, there are tiny little barbs on the microscope. And those barbs are actually what pulls the string to make the sound. And so, there's been so many bows in my life that never get applause, that never get to be on stage, but they are the ones who have created the sweet sound in my life, such as my teacher and my family, and especially my hubby back there. So I'm so appreciative for the sweet bows in my life. And as I get older, I think, wow, how can I be a bow into other people's lives? How can I bring out the sweet sound in their spirits? And that's my goal now. So, you know, this little piece of wood, this 100-year-old piece of wood has taught me so much, not only from his origin story, but our journey together. And there's still a lot of music left to play in him. And I love that. You know, he's taught me that tension can create a sweet journey, that pressure can create amazing goals, and that life is not a solo project, and that we need each other. So the story is not yet finished. And just like this little old violin, your story and my story are still being played out. Thank you so much.